take no more games. You on that one, my man.
Okay, Friday edition of the After Show. Got Wink and Justice with you. Wink over here on the East Coast.
It is Angle of Repose Friday, and this is Justice on the West Coast. That's right. Surveys say that's the angle in which a granular substance stays in place on a slope, but we here on the After Show insist it's the angle that you recline in your Barca lounger while reading Wallace Stegner's Angle of Repose.
Heck yeah.
All right. How you doing, Wink?
Not bad, not bad. It is a 61 degrees. Kind of gloomy out there today. A lot of overcast, but yeah, it's going to go up to about 66. So, we're pretty much in the 60s, I guess, as we kind of push toward October here tomorrow. Ready to get in the chat, just go to netrootsradio.com. Scroll down the bottom of the page, and on the right-hand side of the bottom of the page, there is a link to the chat. So click that and join us there.
And, of course, while the Donate Contribute button is just to the left of the chat room link there at the bottom of the page, and I should remind folks that we are unable to do this without you, and thank you for your generosity for those who have clicked that link and contributed or donated. The homepage really is dedicated to get out the vote, and that is our, we'll call it our prime directive.
Yeah.
Starfleet tasked us with. And, if we don't vote, the other side wins. It's as simple as that.
Exactly.
Well, Wink, here along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, it is currently 52 degrees. We're going to go up to 71. Considerably less hot than it was yesterday. We went up to 8 yesterday, which was, I kind of consider it to be kind of warm. And only 71 today. Upper 60s tomorrow. Small chance of rain tonight and tomorrow. But rain. Not a sprinkle, but actual rain is forecast for Sunday still. And as I look at the radar satellite map, there's quite a bit of wet cells drifting this way. So maybe we'll get lucky. Well, I woke up this morning, and it's not usual that I get up in the morning and the first thing I think about is, clicking on a porn site.
Right.
But Donald Trump, apparently all night last night, was just upset at Alicia Machado, the Venezuelan Miss Universe that became a U.S. citizen, is voting for Hillary, and had been fat-shamed by the Donald and other kinds of abuse. And, of course, it's well known that this guy does this. It kind of cracks me up. People going, oh, well, this is not unusual. This is like, no, it couldn't be. He's too successful of a businessman, which is a lie in and of itself. But I don't know. Well, first of all, there are no sex tapes. Okay. Got to make that clear. The porno tape that InfoWars links to, that's not Alicia Machado, which kind of makes you think that people who, Alex Jones in particular, people who deal with InfoWars, and maybe Donald Trump, can't tell the difference from one Latina to the next.
Yeah.
Okay. So vaguely, I guess, looks like Machado in that The woman has dark hair and is a Latina. So it kind of cracks me up. I mean, this is making the meme out there. Oh yeah, it's there's a sex tape. She's got a sex tape. She's no angel. And at the same time, I mean, doesn't he know that his wife has been in some pretty raunchy photo shoots? And I don't know. What is he thinking? I don't get it. Well, I know what he's thinking. Is that he's still banking that the American electorate is so stupid that they'll just believe anything he says. And that's true for his supporters. But he's banking on the rest of the United States electorate having the same level of, let's say, lack of critical thinking skills.
Right.
As his psychopaths have. I mean, this is how psychotic Trump is. He's mad at his advisors for telling him that he lost the debate. Now, don't you tell me that I lost. I didn't lose. I don't lose. I have special genes, superior genes. Which dovetails into the other aspect that has come out here recently. And this is now also fairly well known. I don't know why people have forgotten it. But, he's been on this Germanic superior gene kick since he first hit the, at least the New York stage. Okay? And then later the national and international stage. He's never hid the fact that he cites his, supposed, because there's some speculation he might be Dutch rather than German. But, there's some Germanic blood in there. So he counts on that as, that and he was taught this by his dad. And there's, I know people. I have friends who are progressives who have a kind of Teutonic tilt to their view of the world. Right. And literally believe that, they have superior genes.
Yeah. The old Aryan race still lives, I guess, yeah.
To me, the only superior genes are Levi's because, they're double-stitched and they've got their little cotton stays. The copper stays.
Yeah.
Those are the only superior genes in the world.
Pretty much.
Chromosomal? I don't know. Not much difference between all of us when you get down to it. But don't tell a Teutonic that. Oh, my God. Oh, big old... train crash in Hoboken. Crazy, huh? Yeah, 5 years ago, they had a similar accident. The train came in much slower and didn't go airborne when it hit the barrier, as this one did. But 5 years ago, and one of the, the National Transportation Safety Board said, maybe you should have like a fail-safe system that, turns off the electricity when the train's coming in. If the driver is incapacitated or what? 5 years ago. Now, who was governor 5 years ago? Who's been governor since in New Jersey? And where did that money go that was supposed to go to the transit system? Yes, it went to, that's right, Port Authority, because that's their slush fund. Port Authority is involved in Bridgegate. So, I don't know. Someone's going to jail, but it's probably the operator. That's what I think. Hey, these are the issues we're going to be attending to today, folks. It is Friday. So it's almost like an Anything Goes Friday, but we have a little bit of a theme. See if you can catch it. Wisconsin, wink, lied to a federal court in order to get away with voter suppression, and now they've been caught. Ooh. Red state newspapers who reject Donald Trump face anger and death threats from their readers. But just don't call them deplorable. And the Obama administration quietly instituted new rules yesterday requiring Medicare and Medicaid to cut off payments to nursing homes that require new residents to sign forced arbitration agreements. It's about time. And for the last half, of course, it's Friday, so that means it's the Friday News Dump and Recycling Center news. that's been repurposed with a purpose. That's right. Washington State parents are horrified. A 55-page AP history packet insists that blacks used to have a stronger work ethic during slavery. Yeah, I guess a whip, a lash, and being separated from your child as soon as you birth it, might make you work harder. I think. And science has discovered the one psychological characteristic all online trolls have. They all share the same one psychological characteristic. What is it? Well, we're going to find out. And all that, plus the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast community calendar and more on the after show with that ever so fine fellow on the East Coast. Hey, he did some extra work yesterday, and I think we fixed some of our audio problems. So thank you, Wink, for doing that. And, of course, Wink resides in upstate New York 21 on the East Coast. And by dint of that fact, he does have, however sublimated it may be, East Coastal elitist characteristics.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And of course, I said his name is Wink, and this guy all the way back over here on the West Coast, and barely restrained elitism.
Yeah.
All right. My name is Justice, and I'm on the West Coast, and my name is Justice, just to prove the point.
Yeah.
And do this 5 days a week for an hour-ish, a little bit more usually, and, because who loves you, baby? Oh, yeah.
Heck yeah.
Oh, boy. There's all sorts of other stories. You know, the officer that had killed the mentally disturbed man in El Cajon. Now, let's remind ourselves what that incident was about. The daughter and mother of this fellow had called the cop 911 for hours, saying they needed help. They needed the psych trauma squad team to come out. And 911 said, yeah, well, it's low priority. We'll get to you. And they kept calling. So then the cops show up. And there's a couple of cops that are first on the scene. And, they're dealing with the guy. Granted, they have their guns drawn or tasers drawn. And a third cop shows up and steps out of his car and shoots the guy dead. That cop is embroiled in all sorts of issues. A sex harassment lawsuit with another officer in the department that's been ongoing for a couple of years, to the point that he's had a restraining order drawn against him to stop harassing her. Other incidents of use of force that have been way over the top. And I also have to say, the prosecutor in this area has had 182 incidents of use of force, and no cop has ever been reprimanded in any of those 182 use of force incident complaints. Not one. So we'll see. Rosetta's going to crash into that comet. I think that's set for today. They put the crash landing burn in place. The craft itself is slowly degrading because as the comet moves further away from the sun, the solar cells that power the satellite the craft.
Yeah, there you go.
So will eventually just turn off. And so they're going to do some final science as they now when I say crash land, they're not going to go 10,000 miles an hour. It's going to be about a leisurely walk.
Yeah.
But the craft is not designed to withstand, going 5-10 miles an hour, smashing into something. But as they descend to the surface of the comet, all sorts of science can take place. And to me, that's very exciting.
Heck yeah.
Hey, the president of the Philippines, Duterte, he's compared himself to Hitler. He said, hey, Hitler killed 3-6 million Jews. I'm going to do that here. We're going to kill, whereas, maybe the Jews were innocent. Maybe.
Yeah.
The drug people here, they're not. So I'm going to kill 3 million, 6 million Jews, just like Hitler, or drug dealers, just like Hitler did.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I know where I'm not going for vacation.
Yeah, I want to stay away from here for a while. Give it about 10 years.
This is interesting also. Elizabeth Warren begs Obama to veto the budget because of the provision to protect dark money. Stuff is really cooked in, and it's. I hate Obama getting blamed for something that was already baked in, and he's had to deal with it. But he could, but that would also shut down the government, wouldn't it? Well, up against a rock and a hard place on that one. Well, why don't we get into these stories, because we don't have all day.
Right.
And people wouldn't want us to do this all day. Okay, this first story, Wisconsin may have lied to a federal court. We're not journalists. Okay, we deal with the media. I have critiques of it. But, I guess journalists have to equivocate and say, they may have lied, even though they actually did lie. Okay, so okay. Accuse me of clickbait strategy. Accuse me. It's okay. I can take it. Nonetheless, this article is by Ian Millhiser, the justice editor at Think Progress, and the two-person for everything constitutional and judiciary. Okay, they may have lied in order to get away with voter suppression, and now they've been caught. Good thing. Last August, a federal appeals court refused to reinstate a lower court's order that would have dramatically weakened a voter suppression law in Wisconsin. It did so based on assurances by the state's attorneys that Wisconsin had already taken adequate steps to mitigate the law's effect on voters facing disenfranchisement. It turns out those assurances were not true. There's another word for that. They lied.
Yeah.
As Ari Berman reports for The Nation, voters in Wisconsin still face potentially insurmountable obstacles between themselves and the ballot box. And those are the very same obstacles the state told the appeals court that it would eliminate. This is the way the right wing works, isn't it? Isn't this like a long strategy? Tell them what they want to hear, go back and keep doing what you've been doing. Well, to explain, Wisconsin's voter ID law, a common method of voter suppression which disproportionately disenfranchises Democratic voters, is the subject of many ongoing lawsuits. Last July, a federal trial judge hearing one of those suits ordered the state to permit voters who lack ID to still exercise their right to vote if they complete an affidavit. And this was interesting because that judge said we're getting too close to the election to change this law and suppress the vote, because we don't do that. So make them sign an affidavit. We'll figure it out later. If someone broke the law, they'll go to jail. Because the other alternative is disenfranchising hundreds of thousands of people for a crime that has never been committed. In-person voter fraud. Oh, let me back up. There have been a handful of cases where there has been in-person voter fraud, and it's always been by Republicans.
Yeah.
So let's be clear.
Yep.
Some by accident, some by guile. So, weeks later, an especially conservative three-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit halted the trial judge's order. In response to this three-judge panel's order, plaintiffs challenging the voter ID law asked the full Seventh Circuit to take up the case. In a previous iteration of this challenge to the state's voter ID law, half of the Seventh Circuit's active judges indicated that they were skeptical of the state's laws. Since then, one of the more conservative members of the court retired, leaving the judges who expressed doubt about Wisconsin's law with a majority. Which obviously is not legitimate in the eyes of the right wing, because we're part of the body politic. We are supposed to be suppressed. How dare we have a majority? Nevertheless, the full court refused to reinstate the trial judge's order weakening the voter ID law in an August 26 order. Significantly, the August 26 order relied on Wisconsin's representation that, quote, the state has already voluntarily accommodated any concerns relating to the November 2016 election. Specifically, Wisconsin has enacted a rule that requires the Division of Motor Vehicles to mail automatically a free photo ID to anyone who comes to DMV one time and initiates the free ID process, unquote. Given this representation, the full court concluded that there was no urgency justifying weakening the law. Yet, as Berman reports, the state's new rule doesn't amount to a hill of beans in much of the state. DMV employees told one voting rights activist that it would take 8 weeks for the state to process an ID request, meaning that the election will be over before the voter receives the ID they need to vote. Others were told it would be easier for everyone if they presented a birth certificate, even though the state told the Seventh Circuit that no one must present documents such as birth certificate, proof of citizenship, and the like, unquote. Altogether, only 3 of the 10 DMVs said that a voter would get an ID to vote in a week or less, as state law requires. It's unclear whether Wisconsin intentionally deceived the Seventh Circuit. We're talking about Walker. We're talking about Scott Walker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I know that Ian Millhiser, he's got to get corroboration, in a triangulated way. 3 independent sources. That's usually the equation that you use to determine a fact. But we're talking about Scott Walker. Appears? No. He's been getting this playbook from Alec. Demagoguery in a box. Okay. Or whether it merely made representations that individual government offices were not prepared to make into reality. In either event, however, the result is the same. According to Berman, 9% of registered voters in Wisconsin don't have a valid voter ID. Many of these voters are likely to be disenfranchised because the Seventh Circuit believed the state's false claims. Worse, it is unclear whether this problem can be cured at this late date. Supreme Court's decision in Purcell versus Gonzalez warns that, and this is what I alluded to earlier, courts should be cautious about handing down decisions impacting a state's election law as the election itself draws nigh. So the state lied to string out the timeline in which then we're too close to the election to void an illegal law because it might impact the Republicans, gaming the election is essentially what we're looking at here. Though it is possible that a majority of the Seventh Circuit might have been willing to hobble the state's voter ID law last August, Purcell suggests it is less likely that they will be willing to do so now. Nevertheless, most cases involving Purcell do not involve the unusual facts of this particular case, where a court stayed its hand because it believed a claim made by the state that later turned out to be false. I think there's a contempt of court statute when you lie to the court.
I would think, yeah.
Okay, just saying. Okay, this next article is, it is, out of the Oregonian by Douglas Perry. Newspaper endorsements aren't supposed to matter anymore in this hyper-partisan age. People are not open to the possibility of changing their minds. Their opinions are ratified daily, even minute by minute, by like-minded souls on Facebook and other social media. That's why many newspapers have abandoned candidate endorsements in presidential elections. Lest you might offend the few readers that you have. And of those few, there might be the ones that are Republican. You got to keep every subscription, right? I get that. But this year, some consistently Republican newspaper editorial boards, seeing in GOP nominee Donald Trump a threat to fundamental American values, are re-embracing the presidential endorsement, and a lot of their readers are not happy about it. We've been waiting for 8 years to be able to kick these people. For real. Unencumbered by PC culture.
Indeed.
You're not endorsing our saint, our white knight in shining armor, come to save us from the hordes of mud people, come to take away our rights as white people. We don't want to share equality. We want to say what everybody else has to live while we live the way we do, the way we want. Well, if it was just that kind of complaint, I guess it wouldn't be so bad. Or feeling the weight of our history, Arizona Republic editorial page editor Phil Boas said this week. He was remarking on a rash of subscription cancellations and threats that have flooded into the newspaper since the Republic endorsed Hillary Clinton. The first time in the 126-year-old newspaper's history that has ever backed a Democrat for president. 126, never backed a Democrat, Wink. All right. The challenges the United States faces domestically and internationally demand a steady hand, a cool head, and the ability to think carefully before acting, the editorial states. Hillary Clinton understands that. Donald Trump does not. The Republic's editorial board admitted it had reservations about Clinton, but insisted she is clearly the superior choice, and then listed the well-known arguments against Trump, including his simplistic, vague, and ever-shifting policy positions, his blatant sexism, his race baiting, his childish insults, his, quote, stunning lack of human decency, empathy, and respect, unquote. Trump, the editorial concludes, quote, beneath our national dignity, unquote. The Republic has joined a no longer very exclusive club. Republican publications that reject Trump and encourage readers to vote for one of his opponents. The revered conservative journal National Review started the trend back in January, when it devoted an entire issue to criticizing Trump. More recently, the Dallas Morning News and the Cincinnati Enquirer broke long traditions of supporting Republican presidential candidates by endorsing Clinton. New Hampshire's conservative Union Leader newspaper, meanwhile, has backed Libertarian Party candidate Gary Johnson. Well, the Union Leader editorial, written by the paper's publisher and featured on the front page, started with a joke making the rounds on the internet. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are together in a lifeboat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. No land in sight, no ships in sight. Question: who survives? Answer: the American people. Well, that's nice. That's why they're going with Gary Johnson. Okay.
Yeah, more than likely, yeah.
Gary Johnson is that, when they ask him, like what of the 7 seas would the lifeboat be in? He wouldn't be able to name one.
Right, yeah, exactly.
In Dallas, a group of angry readers gathered outside the Morning News offices to protest the paper's Clinton endorsement. I love that, Dallas. The one that had, the wanted poster of Kennedy days before he came to Dallas. Yeah. Billboards that said wanted, dead or alive.
Yeah.
That Dallas. Those Dallas residents.
Yes.
Editor Mike Wilson addressed them, arguing that the editorial board chose to stand on principle rather than partisan tradition, and the people out there said, no, we don't want principle. We want to be able to kick the happies and their fellow travelers. Damn it. He later acknowledged on Twitter that he got a few words in and persuaded 0 people. Shouting continued, he said. Texas remains a safe red state. It will go to Trump in November. Part of the reason the Arizona Republic is receiving vitriol from readers, no doubt, comes from the fact that the Democratic presidential candidate for the first time in a generation actually has a shot at winning the Grand Canyon state. The latest poll out of Arizona, taken immediately before Monday's presidential debate, gave Trump a very slim lead in the state, 40 to 38%, with Johnson at 9%. And it's going to be a close election. And if Arizona ends up giving the presidency to Clinton, the Republic probably can't expect another wave of, or the Republic probably can expect another wave of subscription cancellations. Let him go to InfoWars, okay? So they can get the real news that they deserve.
There you go. Yeah.
Idiots. Oh, I know. I'm not supposed to call the American electorate idiots. I'm not calling the American electorate idiots. I'm calling certain parts of the American electorate idiots. See, and this is my complaint, too. 40 to 50 years of getting civics classes out of the schools as a requirement, and look where we are.
Yeah.
I mean, we have people that don't know the basics of what this democracy and representative democracy and republic is. Exactly the way Alec, Koch brothers, and these other, oligarchs want it.
Yeah, exactly right. Yep.
All right. So this story is also by Ian Melheiser from Think Progress. New regulations issued by the Department of Health and Human Services on Wednesday will protect millions of seniors from a legal tactic often used by businesses to shield themselves from scrutiny and from liability for illegal conduct. Isn't that nice? Under the new rules, Medicare and Medicaid will cut off payments to nursing homes that require new residents to sign forced arbitration agreements, a contract that takes away the resident's right to sue the home in a real court and instead shuns them into a privatized judicial system. Privatized. Who wants a privatized judicial system, Wink? Oligarchy in a box? We'll give you a template? That's right. Forced arbitration agreements proliferated after the Supreme Court interpreted an obscure 1925 law to enable businesses to immunize themselves from suits in the public court system. Now, what was going on back in 1925 that would have caused that? Could it be lack of food regulations and people were dying from poisoned bread? Could it be from X-ray machines in every Woolworths and people were taking X-rays of their feet and suddenly there were an increase of cancers? Could it be from what else? Cocaine and cough syrup? Congress enacted the Federal Arbitration Act so that, as Justice Ginsburg once explained, merchants with relatively equal bargaining power could agree to resolve disputes through arbitration rather than through potentially more costly litigation. Actually, what we're talking about here in the 1925 order is one company suing another company for not fulfilling a service. And apparently this was happening so much because I think it was called the Gilded Age, right? And greed was the motivating factor. And there were so many lawsuits coming into the court system, they needed a way to free up these bottlenecks. So businesses suing each other would go through this arbitration agreement, which was not a privatized court system. Regardless. Okay. Beginning in the 1990s, however, the court began to read this law more expansively, permitting ordinary consumers and even employees to be forced into arbitration as a condition of doing business with a company. One of the big reasons why I could not pursue a career in real estate as a salesperson or even a broker because I was forced to make other people who were buying a house sign a non-binding arbitration agreement, which essentially takes their constitutional right away for having a jury trial. I couldn't in good conscience do that. Everybody said, don't worry about it, it's boilerplate. I know. Another reason why I didn't want to become a real estate agent is because I also didn't want to be sued long after I stopped being a real estate agent.
There you go. Yeah.
I mistakenly aligned myself with mortgage brokerage firms who were doing predatory loans and getting people into houses when they shouldn't have been? I don't know. I guess I'm a loser. As a result, even the most egregious cases can be locked out of court. The New York Times reported that a 94-year-old woman at a nursing home in Murraysville, Pennsylvania, who had died from a head wound that had been left to fester, was ordered to go into arbitration. Well, she's dead. The family of another woman who experienced 2 spine fractures from serious falls, a large infected ulcer on her heel that prevented her from walking, incontinence from not being able to get to the bathroom, receding gums from poor hygiene assistance, and a dramatic weight loss from not being given her dentures, was also diverted into arbitration after they sued the nursing home for neglect. In case there is any doubt, arbitration is a less favorable venue for parties pushed into arbitration agreements than the ordinary court system. An Economic Policy Institute study, for example, compared arbitration in employment cases to similar court cases. It found that employees were significantly less likely to prevail in arbitration and that they received significantly less money when they did prevail. And I think that's what's in the ALEC kit. Indeed. You want to be an oligarch? Yep. Forced arbitration agreements. Look at all the benefits. You pay less, you lose less. Nice. Additionally, while court orders are typically public, arbitration is often secretive. Accordingly, forced arbitration clauses enable nursing homes with a pattern of abuse to hide their illegal practices from public scrutiny. Sort of like when they seal the court decisions, like when, say, a big food company is poisoning people from salmonella, and then they agree to a settlement, but without any culpability of criminal negligence. Sort of like that. Now, because the new rule only applies to people newly admitted into nursing homes, forced arbitration clauses may still impact current nursing home residents as well as those admitted before the rule takes effect this November. Nevertheless, the rule will eventually phase out forced arbitration in the nursing home context, ensuring that residents will be able to assert their rights in court once again. How un-American, asserting your rights? Can't have that. All right. All kidding aside, let's get to our Jim Hightower break. We'll come back, go through the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast community calendar, and then the stories for the Friday News Dump and Recycling Center. News that's been repurposed with a purpose. You're listening to the After Show on Netroots Radio with Wink and Justice, and we will be right back.
The media establishment has labeled Donald Trump a populist, endorsing his absurd assertion that while he might be a billionaire, he'll be our billionaire, fighting for us commoners. I'm not telling anyone how to vote, and I certainly understand the inclination to grab the biggest stick you can find to whack the bejesus out of those political and corporate elites holding you and your family down. And Trump has sold himself as the biggest, baddest stick around. But I am here to say, don't be a sucker. There's not a single populist muscle in Donnie's whole plutocratic body. He'll sell out wage earners, small business people, and anyone else to serve his own needs or whims, as his lifelong record, as opposed to his recent rhetoric, reveals. Donnie learned to be self-serving from his father, Fred, who became a millionaire by getting federal housing subsidies to build apartment buildings in New York City. Then, as landlord, he flagrantly discriminated against black people trying to rent an apartment. One of Fred's tenants was none other than Woody Guthrie, who was so appalled by Daddy Trump's greed and racism that he wrote songs denouncing him. The Donald not only inherited Fred's fortune, but also his business ethics, including engaging in wage theft, outsourcing his expensive Trump-branded products to such low-wage countries as China and Vietnam, and illegally using and underpaying undocumented immigrants to build his luxury projects. Also, he's been sued hundreds of times for stiffing cabinet makers, plumbers, and other small business suppliers. This is Jim Hightower saying, Donald J. Trump is a swaggering son of privilege who has never been on the side of working people and most certainly would not be a populist president. To the contrary, in his heart, mind, and his whole being, he's nothing but a Trumpist of, by, and for himself.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
Powered by Unity Networks. You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Okay, we're back.
And indeed, we are back, and thank you for sticking with us. This is the After Show with Wink and Justice. Justice here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the West Coast. Wink is in upstate New York, 21 on the East Coast. And though we are also part of the crew, for the purposes of being part of the crew, we are also the ethereal creatures who reside in the cloud, whose advanced intergalactic technical abilities allow Netroots Radio and the Spike Extension, the After Show, to span the globe, the universe, and beyond.
Heck yeah.
Sure. Okay, today's Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast Community Calendar is facilitated as it is every Friday by Smiley Creek. And her question is, what is your favorite cartoon mascot? And she, of course, she's got Smokey the Bear and Smokey the Bear.
Roadrunner, maybe, for the
Bear.
battery. Battery commercial there, whatever the hell that is. Duracell, maybe? I don't know. One of those.
Rabbit with the big bass drum. What about Charlie the Tuna? Huh?
Yeah. There you go.
The Frito-Lay Bandito. That wasn't ever one of my favorites. I was in third grade when they got rid of that. I have to say, as a third grader, I just thought it was a little weird. They had this sort of like Mexican guy, bing, 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 bing. I just thought it was, I don't know, a little weird.
Right.
But when that lawsuit came through and the Frito company said we're not going to use this bigoted caricature. As a third grader, that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, there was something odd about it that kind of bugged me. I couldn't put my finger on it. And then when I realized it had something to do with an ethnic slur, and then I started looking around, and, you had these like Sambo's restaurants with like, the black Sambo in front of it.
Yep.
I started looking
around.
around.
Have one in this neck of the woods.
I know.
I go, wow.
And
man.
as a third grader, I started looking around. I mean, it really opened up my world, and I started seeing all this stuff. And it occurred to me, now I was going to Catholic school, which is, for all intents and purposes, does give you a pretty good critical thinking education. But I began to look around and thinking to myself, well, this is what they mean by indoctrination, because I just come up with that. I'd just been faced with that term. And of course, we were talking about propaganda and Hitler and all of that. And so I started looking around at my own culture. And I thought, well, this is wrong. And so it gave me, it actually gave me a better idea about, how corporations could face the facts and do something about it. So.
Heck yeah.
I still remember that. Frito Bandito.
Yeah.
Events currently scheduled. The Daily Coast Asheville Cossacks, of course, will be meeting up on Monday, October 24th, 12 to 6 p.m. in Asheville as they connect face-to-face, sharing information, getting inspired, and adding to the crowd that is there to support Reverend Barber in the week of early voting.
Awesome.
It's going to be at a restaurant to be determined, and the point person on that is usually Randolph, but go to the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast Community Diary for the appropriate links to click. And you'll also see your fellow Daily Coast folk community in pictures galore as well. So that is your Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast Community Calendar for the 30th of September. That's right. We're almost into October now. You know what bugs me? is I was, I don't normally go to these stores, but because, I'm taking care of my mom, I'm like now forced to,
Yeah, I know it is,
So-
yeah.
I would never on my own go to a Dollar General. I'm sorry. Some
Right.
people think it's cheap. Well, it is cheap, and it's also predicated upon international slave labor. And I'm just, I have my little boycott going
Yep.
on for that.
I hear you.
And where were we also? Target, which is kind of sad because, Target, in terms of its social agenda, is really one of the top corporations. And it's somewhat sad because they have all of it has all the look of a company that's going out of business. The store I was in Medford,
Yeah.
bins and bins of clothes that haven't been hung up.
Oh,
and just
yeah, okay, yeah.
shelves empty, but bins full of stuff.
Right.
It's just it that's usually indicative that the company's in the throes of going down.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Because I thought, well, if I'm going to go into one of these stores, I'll go into a Target. But get this, I mean, it's not even Halloween, and certainly not Thanksgiving. They've just bypassed Halloween and Thanksgiving, and they're putting up the Christmas stuff.
Oh,
already.
heck yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The hell?
Oh,
So I
yeah.
go into Dollar General. I mean,
Yeah,
they
they're
got
already
some.
playing Christmas music in some places, yeah.
Get this, they have at Dollar General. They
You gotta be
have the
kidding.
Halloween stuff,
Yeah.
but they're putting up the Christmas stuff, and I'm all, well, where's Thanksgiving?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, if they said, well, we don't put up, honoring the slaughter of Indigenous Peoples Day,
Right.
stand. But the manager said, yeah, isn't it weird? Right past Thanksgiving, and we're putting up the Christmas stuff. Crazy. Okay, this article is by David Edwards out of Raw Story. A mother in Washington State this week said she was outraged by an AP history lesson which extolled the virtues of slavery and accused Hillary Clinton of, or as, I'm sorry, am I doing a West Coast slang there? I mean Clinton, of setting back the women's rights movement. That's what you should be teaching high school AP students. Now, what is AP? Advanced placement. You're supposed to be taking the brightest. And this is what they're teaching them? Well, this actually comes from a particular history teacher. Well, archaeologist and author Rachel Grant wrote on Twitter that she felt physically ill after brought home a 55-page packet titled U.S. History Special Victims Unit, which she described as a non-white male hit list. Who are the special victims in U.S. history, Wink? Well, of course, the people we enslaved for hundreds of years, and now they're complaining. Those are stop being. How many times have I heard a white supremacist who says I'm not racist tell a black or brown person, stop being a victim? God, I hate these people. This is what her AP history teacher is including as part of the curriculum. Advanced history with a sharp lesson in present-day racism, Grant explained. According to the document, African Americans took full advantage of welfare programs that were created by President Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society. You know what kind of AP history class you'd expect to be finding in a Teutonic nation run by a little madman with a funny mustache? Or a weird madman with some weird hair who purports to be a real estate developer. What? The long-term results, however, have been devastating, the document says. Over 3 centuries of a strong work ethic, cohesive families, the thirst for education and Christian values as vital parts of the African American heritage gave way to long-term dependence on the government and the erosion of the work ethic. If we hadn't given blacks the right to vote, we'd be able to use the whip and lash and cattle prod to make sure they did the tasks that they were expected to do. Damn liberals. Another section of the packet claims that the cause for women took steps backward when President Bill Clinton, notorious womanizer as this is a quote, notorious womanizer as governor of Arkansas, was publicly accused by Juanita Broaddrick, Kathleen Wiley, Paula Jones, Dolly Weil, and others of rape and harassment. I'll come back and dissemble that in just a second. First Lady Hillary Clinton joined her husband's attack on the victims, and she stood by her man, thereby setting back some distance the cause of the woman's fight against exploitation, the lesson adds. Now, once again, every single one of these women were paid off by Republican and right-wing operatives, Karl Rove included. Even though he was in Texas, he was doing work in Arkansas, too. You had Roger Stone, the rat fucker from the Nixon administration, involved in this. But, hey, let's teach kids that. Let's not teach the kids about that. Okay? Let's not teach them that the reason this all started is because the Clintons campaigned for a Democrat against a KKK Grand Dragon who was running for office. And that guy linked up with Roger Stone, Nixon, a rat fucker. And they started coming up with these allegations of sexual dalliances. Now, I will say, Bill Clinton was 30 years old. I joke back, our first rock and roll president. One of the perks of rock and roll is sex and rock and roll. What's unusual about that? It's expected. That was my joke. But let's also remind ourselves at the time that the people who were in the forefront of making sure he was impeached because of these sexual dalliances, like Newt Gingrich, was dissing his cancer-ridden wife in her deathbed while he was having a dalliance with a Washington intern. Remember Representative Hyde? And he'd been caught in a dalliance also. And what was his excuse? Is that, that was one of my youthful indiscretions when he was 45. Isn't that weird? He goes on to claim that black lives did not matter so much to President Barack Obama because he provided over a disastrous economy for 8 years. Only disastrous if you don't compare it to the crash that the Bush administration caused. Because we're doing pretty damn good if not for that.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Everything's up.
I think I'm going to vomit, Grant tweeted. This man is teaching my daughter. Grant said that this was the second year that class as a history teacher, but she never felt that she could complain about his politics until now. This isn't politics. This is an agenda, she said. As an archaeologist with a history minor, I know how important history is. And this is all the non-white male U.S. history some students will get. I've made a copy, and now I'm scanning the entire 55-page document. The principal and the school board will hear about this, Grant promised. Yeah, well, I guess it's, both sides, right? Because darn it, if you're going to teach about the Emancipation Proclamation, you might as well teach about how shiftless and lazy these blacks are. Balance. Okay, this next article is by Callie Holloway out of Alternet. Trolling has literally changed culture, both online and off. The word is now used to categorize a wide and varying swath of behaviors, from absurdist contrarian comment posts to harassment and abuse disproportionately aimed at women of all races and people of color, to entire presidential campaigns. There now exist troll scholars, many of whom have been studying trolls for years, and an academic area of study, trollology. Wow. That's
how about that? Yeah.
And how it sparked a sort of anthropological interest in troll behavior and culture. The question for non-trolls is, behind the layer of protective anonymity, what lies... Excuse me. We have these right-wing assholes around here who go to these special auto shops so that they can make their engines run less efficiently and spew out black diesel smoke.
Oh, yeah.
and
Right.
have this really loud metallic engine sound. I mean, they go to have it modified to do this, right? And it's supposed to be like a big middle finger to the man. How dare you tell me that my neighbors should be able to breathe clean air? Well, I got a few of those in my neighborhood. And yes, they have the attendant Confederate swastika and the Make America Great or White Again Trump bumpers. So I'm sorry, that truck that by pissed me off. Okay, back to the article. The findings of a few studies suggest that trolls who are mean-spirited and manipulative online have offline personalities to match, kind of like the guy that just drove by with the black smoke spewing out of his truck on purpose. And that insecurity drives a fair amount of their trollery. I've looked at the guy driving that truck. I don't want to just short people, but I think that his physical stature in the world is one that would promote a bit of insecurity on his part, maybe. And so he's got to overcompensate by the 16-foot tall, truck, right? With the glass pack loud engine noises and the black smoke spewing on purpose. This article actually takes a bit more of a scientific approach than my anecdotal experience, because a case in point are two 2014 studies from Canada's University of Manitoba that looked at the personalities of some 1,200 people who engage in trolling, which the researchers described as behaving in deceptive, destructive, or disruptive manner in a social setting on the internet for seemingly no purpose at all. Because they just like to, rattle a few cages, push a few buttons. The trolls would likely say they do it for the lulls or laughs that come at another person's expense. I have to say, I've been getting a lot of the lulls things from, and I'm not being hyperbolic when I say neo-Nazi brown shirts that are advocates of the Trump campaign. I've been threatened with death. I've been sent pictures of Jews getting shot in the back of the head. I've been told that I'm a problem, but they got a, quote, final solution for that. And any kind of...
Yeah.
You need a safe place. Go to your safe place. Right? And at the same time, Digby from Hullabaloo was being attacked. And anytime you would go to a link off of her tweet, you got a malware warning, which would essentially drive traffic away from her site. And they took her off Twitter because of it. And yet these people who post pictures directed to me of Jews, and I'm not even a Jew, but I don't ever tell them I'm not, because I'm going to be a Jew in this instance.
Heck yeah.
I want to be in this instance. It's insane. But the level of hate and just vile. And I got to tell you, I really, some of them I think are like little kids. Little kids like in junior high school maybe.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Sometimes I think that they're paid. Sometimes I think they're bots because of the frequency and similarity of the comments and threats. Well, on a scale of 1 to 5, those surveyed were asked to rate the extent to which they agreed with statements like hurting people is exciting and I enjoy hurting people. They were also posed questions that gauged their levels of psychopathy and asked about fairly mundane things like the amount of time they spend on the internet and their favorite online activities, with trolling given as one option. The second study assessed trolling behavior, identification, and enjoyment along a rating scale, along with a few other things. Both studies revealed similar patterns of relations between trolling and the dark tetrad of personality. Trolling correlated positively with sadism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism, the researchers wrote. In other words, those who took part in trolling generally enjoyed watching others suffer, were pathologically self-absorbed, and lacked conscience and empathy. Of all the personality measures, sadism showed the most robust associations with trolling, and importantly, the relation was specific to trolling behavior, study authors wrote. Enjoyment of other online activities such as chatting and debating was unrelated to sadism. Thus, cyber trolling appears to be an internet manifestation of everyday sadism. Both trolls and sadists feel sadistic glee at the distress of others. Sadists just want to have fun, and the internet is their playground. All right. Well, I had an idea there were some sadistic qualities in this. Well, all right, go to my link on my show notes on my Daily Codes Diary, and you can read the rest of that article and find some more instances and examples of what the study's authors are talking about. All right, well, that does bring us to the end of our broadcasting day and our broadcasting week here.
Yes.
Show, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be bereft of live Netroots radio experiences, because on Saturday, tomorrow, from 9 p.m. till 10 p.m. on the West Coast, midnight till 1 on the East Coast, is the Roundtable Roundhouse Power Hour with Wink and Roaring Girl. That is a 1 hour opportunity for live call-in radio. And, of course, Jibber Your Jabber on Sunday night, 9 p.m. on the West Coast, midnight on the East Coast, a 2 hour opportunity.
Heck yeah.
To Jibber Your Jabber with Wink, and it's Jibber Your Jabber.
Right.
It's a capital Y.
Yes.
So you do that. All right. Otherwise, we have some great content throughout the day and throughout the week. In fact, we've got great content 24/7, 365 here on Netroots Radio. And why? Well, because who loves you, baby? Okay, Wink. I'll see you next week, same time, same station. And before then, I'll just see you on the other side.
All right. We're up.